Good afternoon, Dr. Supreet, and good afternoon, Mr. Yaqeen Sikander. Thank you so much, Mr. Yaqeen, for joining in from Istanbul today to take a session for all our associates. Okay, well,
I'm very glad to be here. Thank you so much for the kind invitation. It's just beautiful to be here.
Our pleasure, our pleasure. So we'll start with the introduction, and then I'll hand over the stage to you and for your presentation.
Absolutely.
So Yaqeen Sikander is a psychotherapist and a wellness coach. He's also an author and published his first book when he was 17 years old. Born and raised in India, he studied in Malaysia, Germany, and Turkey. He has widely traveled and delivered training and workshops in more than 15 countries in the last 5 years about personal development, mental health, and peak performance. Yaqeen is an avid traveler and has been to more than 35 countries so far. He's an excellent storyteller and lives in Istanbul currently. And in his free time, he loves reading, traveling, research, and investing. Welcome, Mr. Yaqeen, to the show once again, to the seminar.
Thank you so much for inviting me here. It's a pleasure.
Over to you now.
I would love, for the participants as well to participate through the chat box, which I can see, so that we can make this session as interactive as possible. So that is the aim here, because I do want to learn more from the people who are attending this program, as well as share certain things and activities. All right. So today's workshop, it's going to be a brief hour workshop, and then you can have your question and answers that you can surely ask as well. So today, one of the most essential topics that I'm invited to talk about is actually stress management, because the stress has been compounded by the pandemic, and that has led to increase in anxiety and stress. As all of you are people who work in a corporate jobs, so corporate job with or without pandemic, it can be really demanding. So what ends up happening is it leads to a quick burnout. So what do we do to take care of ourselves, what we call as self-care? And what do we do to prevent that burnout, especially when we are in this period of COVID-19 and pandemic? So how do we manage our stress while getting an idea of how do we still perform at the best of our power? So that is the aim of today's workshop. So some of the friendly instructions while other people are joining in, I would love all of you to actually have your cameras on so that I can at least get to see your beautiful faces. And while you can keep your mic on the mute, that would be great as well. So if I can see you, that would be really amazing. If that is a possibility, as well as have a paper and pen with you, because we are going to do some activities. And for that, you would need a pen and a paper. And for any follow-up questions, and later on, if you want to see the work I do, the content I share about mental health, you can definitely follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and all the other social media handles. My social media handle is just @Yaqeen Sikander, which is my name. And at the same time, I do want you to be active in this 1 hour in the chat box. So I'm going to ask you some questions, and I would love you to answer those questions there in the chat box, because that would be really great to hear from you and to look at some of the insights that you might be having that we can share with each other through the chat box right there. Okay. And later on, if we have some sharing moment, and for that, our panelists here, they can just bring up one of the participants or a few of them to share certain insights about or some questions or activities, right? So this is just the basic ground rules that we're talking about here. Now, Shiva really introduced me very well. Thank you so much for that. I am primarily a psychotherapist. I'm a clinical psychologist doing my research, my doctoral research in Istanbul, Turkey. And a huge part of my work is psychotherapy and mental health. But apart from that, since last 10 years, at least, I have been active in wellness coaching in different countries, Southeast Asia, Middle East, and Europe mostly. North America, not that much. And, I train people and at the same time, I teach how do we create a balance in life, because I do believe that balance is the key to a lot of things. And I do love poetry. I love traveling and going outdoors. So I work for various educational institutes as a wellness consultant. Now, what are we going to do in today's workshop? If we are talking about briefly in this hour, what are we going to look at? Let's have a look at peak performance. Like, what does it look like? What does peak performance really mean? And how does it relate to stress? And how does stress lead to a burnout syndrome? And what is it? And how do we recognize? What are some of the symptoms of that? And how do we manage stress, right? How do we effectively deal with it if we say that we are stressed? What do we do about it? Which also brings us to a very essential topic, which is related to management of stress, which is self-care during the pandemic, which is related to stress management. So this is like the, a peak view of what we are going to look at in this program. Briefly, we're going to touch on these topics, but mainly it's going to be about how do we deal and how do we manage stress. So everybody with me? Just write something there in the chat box. I can see you. Everybody with me? Great, please. Yep, that is absolutely great. Yeah. Thank you. Just keep it coming. Keep all these messages. And that is actually the chat box is the only way right now that we can communicate. So thank you so much. We're going to be here. So yeah, I'm really excited about it. Now, the world that we are currently living in, staying healthy. And when we talk about health, we as clinicians, we don't see like physical and mental health in different spheres. It's actually the two sides of the same coin. And when we say that, it means that the current world culture, which we have, especially the COVID-19 pandemic, it's really essential that we take care of our health. And when I say health, it means physical and mental health, both, so that we move from surviving, which we all do, towards thriving. And how do we grow, even though these are challenging, difficult times? And how the way we pay attention to ourselves is really essential. Why? Because this is ultimately what leads us to success, is taking care of ourselves. So it all starts from you. Now let's do a small activity. We do this to focus, right? This is, I want you to focus on the presentation, on the program, and bring focus to right here, right now moment. And for that, we do a very small activity. So what I'm going to do is, you have paper and pen, which we talked about before. Everybody has paper and pen, right? Right in the chat box. Do you have paper and pen in front of you? Great. Everybody says that they have paper and pen. Yes, that is awesome. So what are we going to do? Simple activity. I'm just going to move my fingers, right, to draw something on the screen. And you guys are going to draw that on the paper. Okay. So I'm going to start drawing some things or a thing, and you have to translate that whole movement into the paper and the pen using your pen. So I'm going to start 3, 2, 1. Go down. Okay. Follow me towards the right a little bit. Then we go up. Okay. And then we go a bit left. And then we go a little bit top again, and a small one here. And then like this. Nothing on the screen? Did you see me making those gestures with my fingers, those weird things? No? Why is that?
Yaqeen, if you can stop the presentation and if you can come on full screen and do the same again.
Okay, I can do that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, let's see here. Here I am. Now you can see me, right? Great. Now you can see. Oh, okay. It was the presentation was the part. Okay, awesome. Now, paper and pencil or paper or pen with you. So I'm going to draw something on the screen. You're just going to draw that on your paper. Like this. 3, 2, 1. Straight. We go down. Right. Then we go right a bit. Then we go up again. Then we come back. Then we go a little bit up again. Then we go a little bit down. Then we go like this. And then we go like that. Did you see that? Could you draw something? Yeah, you have some idea. Somebody said mug, close. That was close, right? I was actually referring to my bottle. You see, it starts from here, then the top, and then it has this thing on the top. Yeah, close, right? So the idea is that you focus with me, all of you, and that we are here. And sometimes the drawing itself, or even the gestures, the air moves that I was making, it can sometimes be very therapeutic. We have something called as creative art therapy that helps people in discovering that part of themselves. Somebody got a flag. You see, that's how sometimes we are doing something and then we get different results from everybody else. That's just beautiful. So the idea was, yeah, camera is mirrored. That's absolutely correct. It is. It shouldn't be mirrored, but yeah, sometimes it just appears in that sense. But then ultimately, it's a good start. Absolutely a good start. So let me share the screen again. That was to develop some sort of a focus together so that I know that all of you are present here. Now, this idea of peak performance that we often talk about. I mean, even as a psychologist, I look at concepts of motivation or resilience and how do they affect workplace of people, for instance. Now, the idea of peak performance would be, in general, you are in a state, you work in a corporate company, and you are doing to the best of your ability, like whatever potential you have, you're using all of it. Maximum ability while you feel confident and you can concentrate on the task. And this performance comes like naturally because you have trained yourself. You are so good at it that it just comes to you. You're able to perform really well. All your targets, your sales targets, your meetings and everything else, you're meeting it properly. And that would be a definition of typical definition of peak performance. Now, the other idea here is, how do we reach peak performance? Now, if we go to the research, if we look at the ideas, we'll be talking about clarity in the goals, right? You need to have those organizational goals or personal goals and just have that clarity in your goals, even if you're an athlete or you're working in a corporate company or you are a personal brand. So you clarify your goals and then you see what is the end of the goal. The end of the goal is I have to make $1 million, or I have the sales target of $1 million. I'm going to complete that, or I have to run this marathon and win. And that would be your end goal. And then you start reversing the idea. Okay, that's the end goal. What do I do before that, until I reach where I am right now? So that's another idea of reaching the peak performance. And then there's also the idea of emotional intelligence. If you are able to understand other people, which is really important nowadays in the work places, it's also very essential. It's not just your IQ, but it's also your understanding of the feelings and emotions of other people. That really matters a lot, right? So these are some basic common ideas about peak performance. But then I have put a quote of Rumi here, who said that your task is not to seek for love, but to remove the barriers within yourself that you have built against it. So a lot of you might be thinking, इसका peak performance के साथ क्या ताल्लुक है? Like, how are these two things related to each other? इनका connection आपस में ये है कि what this quote actually means is that we look for outcomes, right? I want to be successful. So how do I reach there? I want to be a peak performer. How do I reach peak performance, right? But the better question to ask yourself is, what is stopping me from peak performance? So ये सवाल पूछने से पहले, like, how do I become successful? मुझे successful बनना है या मुझे $1 million चाहिए. Like, how do I reach there? Before that, ask yourself, what is stopping me? क्योंकि जब आपके जो barriers हैं वो remove हो जाएंगे, what is there? Ultimately, there is just success or whatever your end goal is, right? So the idea is to remove those barriers rather than looking for peak performance. What is stopping you from peak performance? So that question you need to ask yourself. Right? So that thing is really essential to ask yourself, what is stopping me? And ultimately, the idea is, it is the burnout or being close to burnout or stress. या अपनी well-being को या wellness को maintain नहीं करना. That is a huge barrier we're going to talk about today that prevents us from peak performance. So rather than defining to you and obviously the program is also not about what is peak performance, but the idea of peak performance is there. But how do we reach there? We reach there by recognizing the barriers. And because of the pandemic and because of the corporate culture in general, wellness sometimes does not get prioritized. So that's why it's essential to talk about that barrier and how do we manage that stress. So we will know what stress is, what burnout is, and how we're going to prevent it. Now, the question of what is stress, and is stress really a bad thing at the end of the day? Now, it's something interesting. American Psychological Association did this survey, and they found that 77% of the adults actually experience physical symptoms caused by stress. And that is a huge number. That's an absolute major number, 77%. So in other words, stress is when our body cannot cope up. We don't have the resources to cope up with these stressors or the things or the problems that are pressing us, right? So our demands, your work demands, your family demands, your home demands, they are much more than what your body can cope up with. And that stage is called as stress. Now, types of stress. There are two types of stress, actually. There is a good stress and there is a bad stress. Good stress, it's called as eustress. अगर हमारे ऊपर अगर स्ट्रेस नहीं होगा, हम कभी एग्जाम्स के लिए पढ़ाई नहीं करेंगे. अगर आपके ऊपर स्ट्रेस नहीं होगा, आप कभी जो आपके जो टारगेट्स हैं, राइट, दैट यू आर गिवन बाय योर कंपनी, वो कभी पूरे नहीं होंगे. Because there is a target and you want to reach that, you want to hit that part. That's why it keeps us motivated. So a little level of stress, which is manageable, is actually good. क्योंकि उस स्ट्रेस जिसको हम यूज स्ट्रेस कहते हैं, उसकी वजह से हम अपने जो मोटिवेशन लेवल्स हैं उनको मेंटेन करके रखते हैं. Because we have deadlines, we perform better. And that's the whole idea of the use stress or the good stress, which is there, that it increases our performance. Now, there is the bad stress, which is distress. Right? Distress. So distress में क्या होता है, हमारे पास वो resources नहीं होते बॉडी के पास जिसकी वजह से हम cope up कर सकें. And because if the stress is left untreated, what happens is it leads to a quick burnout. Now, some of the symptoms, if we talk about, जब भी हम stressed feel करते हैं, and many of the times we're also going to talk about symptoms of the burnout, right? अक्सर जब हम feel करते हैं कि symptoms of stress, different people feel stress differently, by the way, because human beings are all unique and we're all different. It can be headache, it can be fatigue, it can be restlessness, it can be not sleeping or excessive sleeping, it can be nausea, it can be heartburn. Similarly, no energy, right? Gaining of weight and always being negative and don't want to relate to other people, or social withdrawal, or feeling irritated, right? So these are some of the core basic symptoms of stress. Now, the problem here is this, and we see this as psychologists. Long-term stress, if it's not treated, it leads to burnout. We are going to talk about that, but it also leads to cardiovascular disease, stroke, depression, high blood pressure, weakened immune system. Clearly, अगर हम India में अगर study करें, for example, जो culture है call centers का, why is it that the young men who are working in the call centers, a lot of them get cardiac arrest? Like India में problem नहीं थी, like it's something new that I can see that young people having cardiac arrest and heart attacks, like 30s में किसको heart attack आता है? Like that's rare, right? But what is the reason? Reason is puri raat ko jagna, or coffees or Maggie and processed food and stuff over a long period of time, or kaam ka stress, right? So when all of these things combine together, they do lead to cardiovascular disease. Kyunki hum sirf apni health ko abhi dekhte hain, right? You know what, I'm fine. But then even on the corporate ladder, if you have to really go far, you really need to take care of yourself. You see, and a lot of people might be feeling these symptoms, and we're going to talk about other ones as well, about when we talk about burnout. So high blood pressure, depression, stroke, weak immune system, you get more vulnerable to other diseases. That is an effect of long-term stress. So aisa na sochiye ki it's all in your mind. No, it's not. It also is in your body. Now, those of you who are wondering, कभी कभार हम कहते हैं ना, अरे यार, I'm anxious, अरे यार, I'm feeling worried, or I'm feeling stressed. मैं आपको difference बताता हूँ, because this is very essential. Stress is felt in the body. When your body starts showing signs, सर दर्द होना, पेट में दर्द होना, and all these things your body is experiencing, उसको कहते हैं stress. और जब हम कहते हैं I'm worried, worry is in the thoughts. Worry body में नहीं होती. When you say you are worried, it's in the thoughts. अब अगर दोनों में हो, like your body and your thoughts, then it's called as anxiety. So if you're having physical symptoms as well as worry in your mind, both together, that is anxiety. If it's only in the thoughts, it's worry. And if it's in the body, then it's stress. I hope that really makes sense, because that distinction is very essential to make, that when is it stress and when is it anxiety and when is it worry. So worry is more about thoughts, stress is about the body. Combination of both is known as anxiety. Now, when we talk about burnout, and this is something really essential that happens in the burnout syndrome, what is it that a burnout really looks like? It is actually a reaction when you're really tired. Body ke jo resources hote hain na, jab wo end pe aa jaye, right? Like you're literally hanging by a thread, right? Dubne wale ko tinke ka sahara hi bahut, right? So that kind of a situation that you have, like last straw to break the camel's neck. That, in other words, right? But sab dubne wale hain, like, you know, it's the last bit. That is when you have reached a stage of burnout. Chronic job stress, right? इंसान को हमेशा लगता है थका हुआ अपना आप, और जॉब से नफरत होने लगती है, और जो आपकी प्रोफेशनल कैपेसिटी है वो रिड्यूस हो जाती है, राइट? सो यू आर टायर्ड, यू हेट योर जॉब, और आपको लगता है कि यू आर नॉट परफॉर्मिंग योर बेस्ट एंड यू आर इनकेपेबल ऑफ जो टास्क आप किया करते थे, राइट? सो दोज आर लाइक कोर साइंस दैट यू आर बर्निंग आउट. बट इसमें एक चीज ये भी ध्यान में रहे कि बर्न आउट इज जनरली रिलेटेड टू वर्क, लेकिन ये जरूरी नहीं है कि whenever you're burning out, it's only because of your job. It could be the lifestyle in general. It could be your lifestyle. It could be the food habits. It could be sleeping habits. It could be family. It could be your partner. It could be anything else, right? Or this thing that I want to be perfect, right? Or, things are not possible. Pessimism. So those things are also contributing factors towards a burnout. लेकिन अब अगर हम देखें कि बर्नआउट में होता क्या है, वी टॉक्ड अबाउट द स्ट्रेस, लेकिन स्ट्रेस का जो एक्सट्रीम फॉर्म है बर्नआउट, व्हाट हैपेंस इन बर्नआउट? पहली चीज, वर्क रिलेटेड एक्टिविटीज होती हैं, यू स्टार्ट फीलिंग यू वांट टू डिस्टेंस योरसेल्फ फ्रॉम इट, राइट? आपको लगता है कि जो काम आप नॉर्मली किया करते थे, अब ये स्ट्रेस्ड हो गए, अब मुझे इस काम में मजा नहीं आता, राइट? So what should be done? So what can be done is that your work related things, you start getting distancing from that, and then there comes the physical and emotional exhaustion. You feel like, you know what, there are physical symptoms, like we talked about the symptoms of stress, but you also feel unable to cope. There are problems in the family, there are problems, there are fights in the family, or with your partner, with your boyfriend, with your girlfriend. All of those are also signs of burning out. And then the performance gets affected. That's the next step. What happens is that everyday tasks, you're really good at those tasks, you know how to do these things, right? Or how to care for your family, for your children, for your partner, but then you're always negative about all of these things. And there is this thing, irritability. You're always irritated. Like, you know what? You just start, it's like somebody just touches you and you start exploding. That is the idea of a burnout. That is the extreme form of stress. And when we talk about, after talking about the symptoms, if we talk about the causes are very important. What causes burnout? Deadlines, and this is from a Gallup survey. It was a meta-analysis, which means they did it in a lot of different countries and saw that what causes burnout to people. And here are some of the reasons why people burn out. Time constraints. So if people had enough time, employees had enough time to follow their deadlines, then 70% people are less likely to burn out. So lack of time. You feel like, you know what? you know what, there is no time to do this task. So you start getting frustrated and stressed and stressed and stressed. And then no communication from your manager. And that part is frustrating. I know this part, right? You have a manager and you're responsible towards the manager, but then there is no effective communication and you don't feel the support. You feel like you're left alone. I don't know how many of you have felt this, that a senior or somebody who's one grade senior to you doesn't care, literally, like, or things go wrong, they are the first one to throw you under the bus. I don't know, has it happened with somebody? You can just write it in the chat box. It's okay, it's a safe space. If it has happened to somebody, like, you have been thrown under the bus because your manager was not supportive. And that happens in 70% of the cases, right? And sometimes it's also the lack of role clarity. You are given a job description, a job explanation, what are you supposed to do? And then what happens? You have no idea. You're actually doing different things than what you're supposed to do. So the expectations are different in your mind and in the manager's mind. And what happens is that you don't exactly know what you're doing in the organization. And that can also lead to burnout when we don't have proper understanding.
Hi, Yaqeen. I think Sophia wants to answer your question. She raised her hand. If you
don't mind, please. Oh, please, I don't mind at all.
Yeah. Sophia, you can unmute yourself and answer the question. You've raised your hand. Sophia Christie. Okay, I think she's not available.
Okay.
Yeah.
Shall I continue?
Yes, you can.
Great.
I'm sorry for that.
Great. No problem at all. And then sometimes the workload of the work is just too much, right? And then even if you're a person who started with a lot of energy, you're like, what is happening? Like, I'm not able to think or do anything beyond this work. And feeling overwhelmed, that is because of too much workload, and that leads to burnout. And then there is also a very important point, which was in the survey, which is like unfair treatment. And this is something common that I have seen because I work for employee assistance programs and we do therapy for employees who need that. And when they come in therapy, one of the things that they always mention, almost always, is unfair treatment, favoritism, red tapeism, bureaucracy, people getting promoted on things other than their merit, etc. So that sort of a thing, when you see people and you see that, I'm not treated fairly, I'm not getting the position which I deserve, and there is mistreatment or there is sexual harassment, and there are so many other commonplace things. These are elements actually that can lead to burnout, and they lead to burnout very quickly. So this bucket here is actually a stress bucket. These small things that we talked about, the workload, the unfair treatment, and we talked about how stress accumulates and piles up, and this is your bucket. And then the bucket gets full, and even overloaded. Why? Because there are so many things on your plate. And the other thing, which was not a part of the survey, but which is more experiential, is this idea that when we join corporate life, and then we know that we start to burn out, and we do have some realization that we do. And we have this idea in our mind that, I'm going to reach this task. And once I'm there, I'm going to stop. Once I reach this task, once I make $1 million a year, I'm going to stop, and then I'm going to have a good, comfortable, balanced, self-cared, all my mental health is a priority, that sort of a life, right? But then the question is this. You join the corporate world, it's tough, it's cutthroat competition, it's all these things. And you reach your goal, but then you can't stop because let's say $1 million was your goal, or it was, let's say 50 lakhs a year salary, like, your gross salary is 50 lakhs a year. You reach there and then, I'm going to slow down, I'm going to stop. Then 50 lakhs, it seems good, but then 1 crore is better. Right? So then it's like a hamster's wheel. It's like you're on a treadmill. It's a never-ending process. So one of the things that we always say this in therapy, and this is one of the ideas in economics as well, that you have to know when to stop. You have to know when to get off the treadmill. You have to know when to get off the hamster's wheel. Because when you reach your initial goal, then you're like, you know what, if I do more, it's going to be better. I have nothing to lose. So that's sort of an idea. It also leads to burnout. So before we reach that, we have to know when to stop the hustle, right? And when to know that this enough is really enough for me. So that's really essential. And how do we empty this stress bucket? That's also something that we're going to talk about, that how do we effectively deal with stress, or the actual topic of stress management that we have, right? So when we talk about life, right, life is not linear, meaning to say that not everybody's life is like a straight line that it just passes. We have ups and downs, utar chadhav zindagi ke. And why is it essential? It is essential because, you see, that's what makes life worth living, these ups and downs. In medical terms, that's why I have this, ECG here. Why? Because if the line goes straight, it's called asystole, and asystole is actually death, right? So ups and downs keep the heart alive, the electricity, the rhythms. Same is in life. There are ups and downs, and we have to deal with them. They make us stronger, they make us resilient, and we all have our unique ways to deal with things. So having said that, what works for somebody is not necessarily something that will work for you as well. So remember that it's not like a one size fits all, right? So we are all unique. That's something really essential. Now, drawing. I don't know. I just love creative arts and drawing. So let's just draw something. I'm going to ask you to draw something. So you all have the pencil, paper, or pen and paper with you? Chat box, tell me, still with you? Great. Now, this is an activity because I can't see you. I can only see my panelists here. So what we are going to do is I'm going to ask you to draw something, but you have to draw without looking, right? You're going to draw without help of the Google or the internet or the real thing that I'm going to ask you to draw. So you're just going to draw it out of your mind. That's the whole catch. The catch is here. You're going to draw it out of your memory. Now, I want you to draw, and listen carefully. I want you to draw a note, currency, 100 rupee note. So ki patti, like the 100 rupee note, which is there. I want you to draw it, both sides, whatever you can remember, from the front and from the back, from your mind, totally from your mind, whatever you can remember, draw it. And I'm going to give you like 3 minutes to draw it. Some of you have an artist, all of us have an artist inside. So you just have to bring it out. So start drawing, my dear lovely people. So please, your 3 minutes have already started. Start drawing a 100 rupee note, both the front and the back. So time has started. I wish you all the best. I'm going to give you 2 to 3 minutes, and then we can have like briefly, a couple of you can raise your hands and then share with us the Picasso inside of you. On the drawing, great. A minute more. I am really so curious and excited to see what we have here. I mean, if anybody has a sample of what they have drawn, you can start raising your hands. It's okay. If somebody is early to the party. And then Shiva can tell me if we have any hands raised.
Eagerly awaiting.
Oh, really? Great. Let's see. Let's see, who do we have? And then you just have to bring your, whatever your drawing is, just bring it in front of the screen. And you will have to bring up. Shiva can just bring you up, and then we can see what we have, like a couple of participants. I just want to see what you have. That's it. And so that we can share with others as well. What do we have?
Yeah, we have a raised hand. Yaqeen,
Great.
He's Mr. Mahavir Rana. I'm
Okay.
Panel.
Mr.
Mahavir,
Mahavir.
unmute yourself and start
The camera.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just want to see the picture.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just seeing the cam. Are you able to see my screen?
Nope.
Camera
No.
Nope.
Okay.
But Mahavir, we're excited. We want to see what you got.
Is
But
there
I'm
an
sorry.
option, Mahavir, is there an option to switch on your camera?
Mm-hmm.
No, actually, I'm not able to see that option.
Oh.
Okay.
So what do we do?
Yeah.
We need the camera. We need to see your picture.
I'm sorry. Actually, I can only see. I can mute or unmute myself, but there is no.
Shiva, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can, Supreet.
So I think you will have to make him the presenter, then he will be able to present his screen.
Okay. Yeah, we're just looking for the camera here. Take picture, send it in the chat. Not a bad idea, actually. Yeah. I mean, if somebody can, if you can send
Okay.
it in the chat box as well. Yeah. Is it done? Great. If someone can send it also in the chat box, I don't mind. Like, that would be beautiful. Is there an option for that? There should be. So those guys who are not up here, and if you have your pictures, you can actually, if you can do that, I'd be happy to see them in the chat box at least, so that all of us see what we have. Nope, Zoom limitation. Okay. But I do want to see an example at least. Shiva, can we have at least somebody up?
Yes. I'm trying to get that.
Okay, great. Somebody said using PhonePe and Paytm, forgotten how the note looks like. Okay. True that. All right. To some extent, yeah, it is true. But don't tell me you have no idea what it is like. So Nagina Muhammad is up. What about camera?
No, just a second. I think I have a way around to get the video on.
Absolutely. We are all about jugaad. So yeah, that has to be a way to bring it up. That is our way of saying innovation, right? That's like a life hack.
That's right.
Great.
I'm gonna get Mahavir Rana.
And Nagina Muhammad is here as well. Yeah, we can do. We can do that.
Also here.
Somebody says I drew MG on the right, but maybe he's on the left now. Anurag said that. Cool. So yeah, you guys have been drawing. You guys have been trying your skills of you speak Hindi very well. Yes, I do. Yeah. Even though I'm not used to, which is why there is this instinct inside of me to say speak in Hindi or Urdu, or I do speak other languages, but then
okay, we have Mahavir here.
Mahavir, show us.
Yeah, it's
closely.
actually really bad, but yeah, this is what I thought, and I just draw it.
Wow. No, this is the front or the back side?
This is the front side. Like
Okay.
I assumed I'm drawing the front side, and that's it. This is what I got.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much for that. Thank you. There is a okay, you guys saw it. Yeah, everybody saw it. Thank you so much for that. What about Nagina? She's up as well. If we can have last one. Can we do
no,
that?
I don't think so. She's
okay.
Active. Yeah.
Okay, no problem then. So what is the idea here, right? We can't see. Okay, here's the thing. Let me give you an idea of what Mahavir showed us. It was just some lines and some idea that what it looks like, but that's not the idea. Look, guys, blame to the PTM or the Google Paytm or the Google Pay. Fine. But we did not grow up like that. We grew up with money, and we saw it, and this is what it looks like.
And Yaqeen, we have another participant who wants to show.
No, that's enough.
Okay.
Let's move on. Look,
Okay.
here. Now you can see this on my screen. This is a 100 rupee note from the front. And somebody even said it, even that I couldn't remember. I got something totally different. Somebody said it in the chat box. And this is the back side. And this is the front side, right? Old one or the new one. Look, I've done it several times as well. But the idea is, somebody said I made close enough. Maybe, but that's extremely rare. You cannot get close enough to this. And I tell you why. What happens is that when we use things, right? We're using something, we're using the note, or you're using Paytm, or you're using Google Pay, or you're using Phone Pay, or you're using any other sort of the, whatever medium that you use. It becomes habit to the extent that we are so much used to it, but still we have no idea. We are not conscious about it. So same thing happens in the life as well. When things start becoming routine, we overlook a lot of things. We start taking a lot of things, for granted. We are no longer paying attention. And that's how a lot of things become meaningless, right? So the first thing, if you want to overcome your stress, is practice gratitude, count your blessings. Human beings, we have this tendency. You know what is human tendency? We look on what is missing, what we don't have, than what we have. And I tell you why that happens as a psychologist, because people often talk about this. I tell you what is the reason about looking at the negative, and you're like, what is wrong with me? I'm pessimist. No, we have something from the evolution, what we call as negativity bias. हम जब भी न्यूज खोलते हैं ना, न्यूज में हमेशा क्यों नेगेटिव न्यूज होती है, लाइक प्लेन क्रैश हुआ कहीं पे, लाइक और there was an accident, or there is a war going on. I mean, thousands of planes land safely in the airports. Nobody talks about that. Most of the world is peaceful. Most of the human beings are peaceful, right? Most of the human beings are not violent. It's 0.0 something people who are actually really, really violent, right? But why is that not in the news? Because we're influenced by negative things more than the positive ones, because we want to survive. इसलिए जो negative चीजें होती है वो हम पे ज़्यादा असर करती हैं. And that's why we start taking things for granted. We start looking at the missing part of the thing, not what we actually have. So the first thing, if you want to manage your stress, is practice gratitude. Ask yourself, how many things have you taken for granted? Maybe it's your health. Maybe it's your wealth. Maybe it's your friends. Maybe it's your family. Maybe it's your time. All of these things, these are big things. And most often, they get neglected. They get ignored. And we need to pay attention. If we want to live consciously, the first thing that we want to do is be grateful, thankful for what we have. Millions of people cannot see, cannot read, cannot write. And billions of people live. I work on some projects in Africa, in Sudan and West Africa. Millions of people there living less than $1 a day. Like, it's crazy. So that sort of a thing. And then still we are complaining, right? That I don't have this, and I don't have the iPhone 13 Pro Max, and I don't have other luxuries. Right? So first thing that we need to develop, even you work in a corporate setting, even you work in a family, is gratitude, and telling people that they really matter. Because ultimately, trust me on this, and maybe a lot of people, when I say this, a lot of managers don't like this. I mean, your company can replace you, but your family will not. So family comes first, then comes your job. So that is an idea we need to keep in our mind. Like we are replaceable in companies, maybe even by an app, in the coming years. And that happened to a lot of people and a lot of the jobs, traditionally what were counted as jobs, right? So thankfulness, telling people that they matter, right? Traditionally, when we look at Indian tradition, or we look at spiritual religious tradition, what was the idea? The idea was that the things in the world, that the things that we have, this microphone, this laptop, and everything else, and this bottle of water that I have, which I really love, they are for human use. They're for human consumption, right? So we consume things, right? Then we have people, and people are made to love each other. That was the idea. Pick up any spiritual, religious, philosophical text, and you will find this in the ancient wisdom, that love each other, like, love thy neighbor like yourself. And that's what religion tells us. That's what our culture tells us in India, that people are to be loved and things are to be used, right? And when we look around, we see all this chaos. It happens for a reason, because we do the opposite. We love things and we use people. It was supposed to be the other way around, but our condition is different now, right? So we use people, but we love the things that we have. So that needs to change, and practicing gratitude, it's really essential. Something simple. Gratitude can be as simple as, it can be as simple as another activity. Who's up for another activity, right? Chat box. Yes, great. Let's do something small, like a small, insight. Okay, now, how many of you don't live with their families, right? Like, let's say you don't live with your family, or not all of your family is there, or not all of your friends are with you, right? Or maybe your partner is not with you. You're in a long distance relationship. Maybe your wife or husband, or maybe your children are not there. Like, how many of you are there, like you don't have all the people that you love, right? Everybody, maybe your parents, it could be a brother or a sister, it could be a sibling. Like, you don't have 100% of the people you love with you right now. So yeah, right? So it's not with you. Let's do a simple activity. Okay, just take out your phone and tell the person that you miss most right now, maybe your father, maybe your mother, maybe your brother, maybe your boyfriend, maybe your girlfriend, your wife, your children. Just take out your phone and send them an SMS or a WhatsApp message that, I love you. Somebody said that, right? Send them a message, and then you can put a context that, I'm in this training program, and our trainer said that, I should do this if this feels very hard to do, because in our culture, emotions ko express karna, we find it difficult somehow, right? So let's do it now. Yeah, that's a task, right? It sounds very hard. Okay, I tell you something. Okay, let's just do it. But that's why I said give a context. I always told people, and I have done this in more than 10 countries. Okay, just take out your phones. Just don't message yet. I'll tell you something. I'll tell you something funny. I have done this all over the place, and then people are like, they write messages and they tell me what their parents said, and we share, because we do long workshops that last for a few days, sometimes, or retreats and trainings. And then I was in India, and I was in this place called Kurukshetra. It's somewhere in the north, and I went there for there, and I did the same activity just like normal, right? And they did the same activity, and you know what? It was a university orientation, and the parents started calling, and they were like, "Are you all right? You're not gonna kill yourself or do suicide or something like that." It was the first time, and then it just hit me back. I was like, right, it's what a lot of you are writing as well. And that's why context is important, because look, I did it in Europe, I have done it in Malaysia, in other countries, and the people are like emotional. The parents are like, oh, we love you too and stuff. Here it's a different message, like paise chahiye kya, khud ko to kahin maar to nahi dalega, or are there going to be questions like that? And that is true. I had never realized it, and I was going to make that a point to tell it to you people. But now, still, offer stands. That's why you can use me as the bait and baat karo usne. So what we can do is, okay, here's the part. Just do this. I know it looks hard, but let's see. You know what? You're just going to open your phone, even if it's a single person, your dad, your mom. You know what? I'm in a training program, and we were talking about gratitude. And I just thought to say that, you know what, without any reason, that I unconditionally, I just love you or miss you, right? So please, can we do that? So can you just do that now? Please, no cheating, right? Yeah, these chat readings are really amazing. I'm amazed by what I see in the chat box, but please, all of us, let's just do it. I'm going to give you like 1 minute to do it. I know all of you guys type really fast. It is very hard. And I have done it as well. I am from the same place. So yeah, somebody said my wife is on the way to got a cute message back. Lolita, what do you get back? Right, you see, that's what we do. What do you get back? So that's why I'll miss you too. You see, my sister is calling. Yeah, just pick up the phone and say, you know what? I'm going to give you like a couple of minutes. right? So this is really essential. So yeah, just write the message. I know half of you haven't even written the message. Half of you are still thinking like, you know what, likhu na likhu kya karu, like, you know, you are still in a dilemma. So just do it. Just do it. Missing your presence, hope all well. Oh yes, absolutely. Tell them that it was just a thing that you had as a part of the program. And yeah, everything is well. Tell them everything is okay. They're asking what happened suddenly. Tell them everything is good. You see, this tells us how much we love each other, but we never say it, right? Ek cheez, what we teach in therapy to the clients is also what we call as affective labeling. जिसको हम कहते हैं कि emotions को नाम देना and telling people that you love them. Life is fragile, right? I got a call, my sister is angry on me. Why? Like, look, if you miss people, all the idea here is gratitude, being thankful for the family you have, the people you miss, and making it normal to ask people how they are doing. Got a reply, love you too. So you see, we have a divided house, right? But at the same time, we have to learn how to express our emotions. This is something which will go a long way, is practicing gratitude. People are greater than materialism, right? So yeah, I'm missing my mom. Nobody saw my message. They will see your message very soon. So the whole idea here, what I wanted to spend the time on is tell people that you appreciate them. Like, what is wrong? You know what? In our culture, it's more like, usko pata hai, like, you know, people just know that you love them. Like, no need to say it. But somebody says, my sister is calling. Say hello. Say, yeah, everything is okay. My father sent the sweetest message. We are all in strong bond. We miss you every minute. You see, that sort of a thing to remind you that you have a family that you can rely on, that you have the support, being thankful for it on a daily basis, that, you know what, life is beautiful. Life is beautiful. So that is the idea. And this, if we are talking about stress management, self-awareness, what happened to being aware of ourselves? Because, you know, we have all these ideas of stress management. I would do this, I would do that. No, we have to go back to the simplest of the things. My son says, what happened? You know, just explain. We talk. And this is where we need to change the narrative, right? Is we practice gratitude, but at the same time, we know ourselves. And you know, why is it important to know ourselves? Because if you don't know who you are, it would be very hard for you to navigate through your emotions and to know what you want and what is causing you stress. What is your peak performance? Who do you want to be? Knowing yourself. India has a rich tradition of spirituality, and all the spirituality has one message: know yourself. There is no message, right? So thankfulness, self-awareness. You see, this idea of self-awareness. Let's say we want to do this shopping and we want to get this phone. Let's say. So then I'm going to check my budget. Ye mera budget hai, and then I want to get an iOS or an Android, and then I narrow down, and ultimately, we come up with what phone do I want, right? So what is the idea? We do the homework. Same for your television and your other things. We all do homeworks for the things, right? Still with me? That whenever we have to buy things, we all do a lot of homework. We do a research and then we come down. When was the last time we sat down and asked ourselves, what about homework on life? Where is my life going? Main zindagi mein kya kar raha hu? Right? So this fast life, right? What am I doing? Where is my homework? Do I really love what I do? Do I love my job? Is this something, when I get old, 20, 30, 40 years down the line, I'll be like, I don't have any regrets. Is that the kind of a life I'm living? Am I moving towards that? That sort of gratitude. And then this awareness, homework of life. You see, we don't notice things anymore. We are going around and we even use our phones, right? If I have to avoid somebody, I want to avoid a person. And what do I do? I'm just like, I'm busy on my phone. I just didn't see you. We even use this as an excuse to ignore other people. What happened, what just happened to the idea of conscious living, right? So this question of what is important, what really matters, is really essential. So this self-awareness is the idea of that what is my meaning? What is the purpose? How aware I am of myself? right? So how much do I know myself? You know, imagine you're a person full of potential and full of love and full of all these things. You are like a billionaire in your resources, and then you don't explore it and you end up poor. I mean, what can be worse than that? I don't think anything, right? So that thing, gratitude, knowing yourself, these are ways that you mitigate stress and know who you are and are confident in yourself. You see, and this idea of the freedom, right? You know what? So when we talk about that freedom, Seneca said this, the philosopher, we suffer more in imagination than in reality. Freedom is a mental concept. Freedom is not just a physical freedom that I'm in a jail, like, you know what, char diwari ke andar main band hu aur I have no freedom. Freedom is a state of mind. We are really chained. We are chained by people's, expectations. And that's why hamara social media, aap dekh lijiye, like, you know, it's a whole different story. Everybody is a globe trotter. Everybody has this wanderlust, never been outside the city, but the idea is there, like, you know what, I'm a globe trotter. I have not seen any part of the globe, but still I am. Why? Because that expectation, I want to be perceived on social media. I want to come up to the expectations of other people. Ki bas ab main ji globe trotter hu, mujhe ji vlogs banane hain aur mujhe puri duniya dekhni hai, right? So this sort of a thing is destroying us. You know, this comparison with other people. Ki Sharma ji ne nayi gaadi lai hai to mujhe bhi lani chahiye, unhone Toyota li hai to main usse koi mehengi le leta hu, right? So this idea that somebody got a 2 BHK, I have to get a 3 BHK now, right? Mere rishtedaaron ne meri cousin ki itni salary hai, so no matter what happens, that I have to just do something in order to reach that level. This mad comparison. And remember one thing, because I know human nature, I just don't do these trainings. I study day in, day out human nature. Whenever you compare yourself with anybody else, you'll always come up short. You will always come up short whenever we do comparisons because of the negativity bias that we talked about. Hum negatives pe zyada focus karte hain, right? So this comparison trap, that we have to come up to expectations of everybody else, including the people who are working with you. Right? उसने ऐसा किया, उसको raise मिला, उसको promotion मिली, right? उसको incentives मिले, उसको bonus मिला, मुझे क्यों नहीं मिला? Like, how do I reach, and how do I go, one step on the other? So that's what we talked about, the hamster's wheel. This comparison never stops. And that's why you have to know where to draw the line. And you have to do that. And that's a part of compassion to yourself, right? And that's why when we talk about self-care, and we're going to talk about self-care in a while, and for self-care, you need to know yourself first. Self-care tab aayega when I know who I am, right? So that is a really essential part, like freeing yourself. Our stress is not only from our work. Our stress comes when we look at our reels on Instagram and we are binge watching. And then we are like, you know what, unki zindagi to kahan hai, and I'm like still here. So what am I going to do about that? So that comparison, right? Then you forget your journey. You forget your own uniqueness. That you forget the unique value that you really bring. And that is what you should be focusing on. What is the value that you bring? So these things, avoiding comparison, practicing gratitude, right? And self-awareness of yourself. These are huge factors, long-term factors that help us in mitigating burnout and stress. And what about, are there other ways? Oh, yes, there are definitely other ways as well that we can surely talk about. Right? So connecting with others, we just did that. And that was one of the messages of gratitude, like connect with others, connect with people who really matter to you. And then acknowledge your feelings. Because I knew in the previous slide, when we did that activity, everybody's like, you know what, feelings are hard to express. Like, you know what, it's just, it just gets awkward, right? In our culture, we don't do that, but it's essential. Knowing the feelings of other people and letting other people know what you feel towards them. It's really essential. Or this idea that, you know what, this positive vibes only and all this, it's just nonsense. Human beings have both positives and negatives, and that is toxic positivity. So we need to accept ourselves and our emotions, and then only we'll be able to work on them. That is something very important, acknowledging our feelings. And what are some of the skills that we need to have in order to, just get over our stress? Remembering that we talked about stress is not always bad. It has some positive elements. Talk about your problems to the people that matter, your friends or people at the work, even if it doesn't solve your problems, talking about your problems, it does help in releasing certain hormones, which will, make you feel better. And then know your priorities. It's really essential that, it's essential that you don't overwhelm yourself with work. Prioritize your responsibilities. Know that what comes first and what comes last. That is something really essential to maintain. And then we have to focus on the basics. What it means is that basics means like your food. Are you eating properly? Are you sleeping properly? Do you stay dehydrated? Like how many of you have at least 2 liters of water a day? I hope most of you. You can write to me in the chat box. Great. Oh my God. Somebody says no, yes, me. Oh, many of you say, yeah, I do. That is amazing. Wow, more than 2 liters. Amazing. Yeah. Somebody said 5 liters plus. Wow, that's a huge. Somebody said not even a liter. You see, basic things. If you're dehydrated, it leads to a lot of other problems. Stay hydrated, for instance. Or even if you're on your chair, like, going back to the basics, always remember to stretch yourself. Like, stretch your arms, stretch your shoulders, stretch your head, like back and front. And like this wobbling kind of a thing you do with your hand, it looks weird, but then it leads to release of stress. Focusing on basics, deep breathing. One of the ways that brings stress levels really down based on literature, research, is double inhale and exhale, 2 seconds. And then 4 seconds, exhale. 2 seconds, 4 seconds of exhale. While you're sitting on your chair, you can just do it, or just get up, more around. That would be something basic to do. That would be amazing. And then remember, don't put all the eggs in the same basket, which means that your job is not your whole life. You have your family, you have your friends, and you have so many other things to do as well. So don't just be so focused on one thing that it leads to you to ignore other parts of the life. And in the end, set time for yourself. Sometimes we make our problems like they're so bigger than they are. See things in perspective. They are not, if it doesn't matter after 5 years, don't waste 5 hours on it. Think long term. At the same time, take a step back, ask yourself the idea that what's going to happen to yourself, to your health. Now, this idea, another part of our culture, you see, dant mein dard ho raha hai, right? So let me just go to the dentist. Like sar mein dard ho raha hai, let me see the doctor. We always see doctors when something is really wrong with us, and that is not correct. You should have your health checkups every 6 months, no matter what. Guys, girls, everybody, whosoever is attending, listen to this and please be proactive about it. Set time for yourself also means you take care of your physical health. So your physical health, your vitamin levels, complete blood count. Generally people have vitamin D problems, vitamin B12, thyroid, TSH. These are common things. So when was the last time you had a health checkup? Ask yourself. You see, when was the last time? So this idea that, I'm going to go to, this health checkup only when I'm like almost dying, so because our idea of a doctor is something should be wrong to see a doctor. That's not true. Get yourself regularly checked after every 6 months for your health. And I always say this, and I cannot emphasize this enough. It's a huge part of your self-care. So that also really, really matters. So please don't forget that. So one takeaway from this program would be, if you have not done your checkup since the last 6 months, like your physical health checkup, so you're going to do that. So who's going to do a complete physical health check, like a blood test and everything else? Like who has not done it since last 6 months? Please, like, take a note of it. Take a note of it. And I cannot emphasize how important this is, because I work in the health sector. So please make sure you check on yourself. Then you see what is it that you need. Somebody says completed last month. Absolutely great, right? So it's interesting. There was this lady who came to me in therapy, and she's like, I'm really tired. I have no focus and all these things and stuff, and I want to seek therapy. I have depression. I said, let's not get ahead of ourselves and let's check. And she thought that I'm just going to give, general therapy and stuff. I said, first thing that we do in therapy, get a physical health checkup, right? She came up with physical health report. Her vitamin D was like 3. It has to be about 20. It was very low. So she got these injections Within 2 weeks, she was fine. She didn't need therapy. It was just a physical health condition. But when you're physically feeling low, it mimics the symptoms of depression or anxiety or all these other factors like energy, loss of energy, fatigue, loss of focus, cannot concentrate. This can happen because of lack of B12 and vitamin D. Very common. It's a nutritious problem. It's not a mental health problem, right? So that's why do a physical health checkup. It's a huge part of your self-care plan. So don't have placed priorities, right? So please put some priority in your health, right? So that is the message. And in the end, very briefly, before we go to the Q&A, I think 4 or 5 minutes I would like to spend upon the idea of the self-care. So now we know about ourselves and we are aware, and how do we care about ourselves in the during the pandemic, for at least? What do we do? Or how do we define self-care first? It is doing any activity in which you take time for yourself in order to relax so that your physical, mental, and emotional health gets better. Now, it is something that we do voluntarily, that we enjoy doing, not what other people are forcing you to do, your company or your family, etc. Now, the areas are there, doing something for your mind, like yoga, mindfulness, your namaz, or other things that you do, right? Similarly, stay in touch with your own emotions, or how are you feeling? You can write a journal about it, about your ideas, or doing physical exercise. And by the way, this is just a free tip for everybody. One of the fastest ways and cheapest, which is free, to get better in case of depression or stress is running. Running is taking a run, right? Yes, physical workout generally helps, but based on the studies, the thing which helps most is running. So if you have a park next to you, and you can even take once a week, you can take some time to run in the morning or the evening for like 20 minutes or half an hour, do it. How many of you do running, by the way? Somebody said adopting a pet. That's great. Oh, yes. See, just walking. No, running helps. Walking helps, but then running is much better. 6 to 7K every day. Wow, you guys are awesome. But then it's a lot of you as well. So most of you don't do it. So start running, and then you will see the effects. You can then write to me or drop me a message on my brisk walk, but ultimately it's the running part which helps. It's not just the walking part, right? Walking can help you connect with the nature and other things, but then running, essential. And then in when it comes to your family, just like you texted them, stay in touch with the people that you love. It's really important. And these are parts of your self-care. And then don't have this idea that, what self-care is for people who have a depression, anxiety, or mental health conditions. No. And self-care also does not mean me time. Self-care can also manifest in a lot of different ways, which are not even expensive. It doesn't have to be something which is expensive. So simple idea. It can be meditation. You can just meditate and ask yourself, I want to meditate, and that is the part of my self-care, right? Or I want to connect with my family, right? Physical workout, eat well, and set boundaries, right? But then the idea, because of the pandemic, is not that, you're binge watching Netflix and, you're binge watching Amazon Prime, whatever it is, all the series that you watch, then just binge watching them. That's not the idea of proper self-care, right? And then eating all the junk or the unhealthy food, that also doesn't work well. So healthy routine, that is really essential. So to sum up, what did we talk about briefly in this hour? We talked about peak performance, and we talked about the barrier of stress that stops us from reaching peak performance. We talked about burnout, and we talked about how we manage stress by self-awareness, practicing gratitude, and other techniques. Some of them we briefly discussed. And then we talked a little bit about the self-care that we can do during the pandemic. And remember, that would be my parting message. If you need professional help, which means the help of a therapist, when we care about our hearts, so we should care about our minds as well. There is absolutely no problem in asking for help. If you need professional help, you need it. And all of us are sometimes in that part of the life when we really need that professional help. So please do not hesitate to seek that help. So in the end, I would love to thank Ethika and MySwish, who invited me to do this brief program with you. I wish I had time to know the names of all of you, to know all of you like really, really well, but we don't have enough time for that. But still, I would love to thank you all, as well as the organizers. And whenever you want to be in touch, at Yaqeen Sikander, is my Instagram, where I am most active. It's my Facebook as well. So please, if you can, follow up from there. And I do share content on mental health. Even if you have to ask some questions, you can definitely do that. That would be really great. And even now, when you have some questions, I do think that we have time for some question answers. And I thank every single one of you. I am so glad that we got this time to interact and to talk to each other. So thank you so much. And I'll handle this to Shiva, I guess, and he can say if there are some questions and all. I'll be really glad. So please be in touch, guys, through Insta and other social media, and ask the questions here as well. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Yaqeen. The session was really, really insightful. And this was one of the most entertaining and most insightful 60 minutes of my week.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. And I would want to launch a poll to sort of collect feedback for this session.
Please.
So that this session, actually wanted to tell you, is a result of the feedback that we've collected over the last few weeks. So guys, really, we love to get your feedback on the kind of sessions that you want us to do for you. So please give us your valuable feedback. And while you do that, we'll slowly move to the Q&A section. I would request everyone to raise your hands or put your questions in the Q&A section so that Mr. Yaqeen can answer them for you.
Yep. Absolutely. So there is the poll.
So we have one question, Yaqeen, on the Q&A section. It's from an anonymous attendee. He is saying how to manage work-life stress and bring more focus to what we do daily.
How do we bring more focus to what we do daily, right? Yeah. So my take on that in general is go back to the basics. So whatever it is, whatever you're working on, how much passionate you are about it, and what is the ultimate goal there? Are you in the job because it pays your bills? Are you there because it serves your purpose, because that is a part of who you are? And is it something that the world needs? Because in an ideal situation, the type of the work that we should be doing, because we just have this one life, which is brief, is something that obviously pays your bills, but at the same time adds something to your purpose. And at the same time, there is a gap. So for example, I was talking to Shiva and we were talking about how much gap is there in the wellness programs or like these and others in India. So how do we serve that? Because that also gives you fulfillment, right? Because I'm here doing this program and we are from the same country and it just gives you that fulfillment. So is that there? So if you ultimately, if we talk in a bigger macro level, wanna, have that focus, and that focus, what we call as, it's called as flow. Flow is the idea that you're involved in something and you lose the track of time. In order to do that, we should sometimes question our choices, the homework of life, right? So on a bigger scale, I would say that try to see how much you love what you do, because that is really essential. But on a smaller scale, I would ask you to be physically in a place like, you're taking care of yourself, and self-care. Make yourself a priority, make people around you a priority, your family a priority. And from that perspective, you go out there to work and see what it does for you. I hope if we have that sort of a mindset on a smaller level as well as a macro level, that should essentially help. I hope so.
Yeah, that's right. And we have another question from one of the attendees, Rupa. She is asking if there is a negative vibe around, should we maintain distance? Is this right?
Well, look, if you have something to offer and you are not among the right audience, then we have to move towards the people who value us, not people who tolerate us, but people who celebrate us, because life is brief, right? So that brings to the question, people with negative vibes. It's very difficult to explain what positive or negative vibes are because it's an abstract concept. But just to be practical about it, people that you want to surround yourself with are people who support you, people who listen to you, people who believe in you. You want to be around those people, and you want to be a person like that who does that to other people, right? Because that is the characteristic of a friend, because your friends support you and your friends are there when you're down and they listen to you. That's something very essential. So surround yourself with such people.
Okay. So we can take a question from Mr. Sridhar. Sridhar, if you can unmute yourself and ask a question. He's raised his hand. Sridhar Kama. Are you there? If you can hear me, can you please unmute yourself and ask a question? Okay. No problem. I think he's inactive. We'll take some questions from the Q&A, from the chat box. One of the questions is, how do you filter your thoughts? This is coming from Mr. Nawaz Mohammed.
Okay. How do we filter our thoughts? Now, it depends on what the thoughts are and ultimately what purpose are those thoughts serving. But in general, I see a lot of the other questions in the chat box, they're about overthinking.
Yeah.
And going back, I actually recently made a video, it's on Instagram, on overthinking, but it's in Kashmiri, my mother tongue. So then it would be hard for others to understand it. No subtitles either. Our YouTube channel is coming soon, so just stay in touch. But idea is this about overthinking. Overthinking happens when we tend to live in our head more than in reality. We start overthinking and then we are worried, right? But then we are not worried only, we're also worried about that worry. Right? Not just we're anxious, we're also anxious about that I'm anxious, that something is wrong, right? So that compounds the problem. So what is the idea here is human beings, we try to overthink. And then when we suffer, most of that suffering is in our head, is in the imagination. That suffering is not in reality. So the limits that we think they exist, mostly they exist in our mind. So what do we do about it if we overthink or if we just want to filter out our thoughts? Get into reality. Your thoughts should have a connection with your reality. And whenever you find yourself, you're overthinking something, get to reality. Start doing things, start moving things, start doing things that are tangible. Unless your profession is to think. If you're a philosopher and it's your job and you're teaching in a university or writing philosophical books and thinking really helps you in that, do it. Overthinking then gets you paid. But for the vast majority of the people, overthinking wastes time. So rather than testing things in your head, start testing those hypotheses in reality. So whatever is in your mind, try to translate it into reality. And if it doesn't, then it's not real. So yeah, that's the simple answer for that.
Great. Yaqeen, we have one interesting question from a person called Bhavna. So you mentioned before that comparison leads to stress.
Oh, yes, it does.
But I think if you don't compare, then you can't grow in your life, as you're just always within yourself and not looking of how people beside you are developing. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, correct. Because it's often like, look, our culture, it has certain measures. How do we measure who is successful and who is not? And we do it through the basis of competition, and we compete. Right. And because of competition, there is the sense of comparison, right? I have to be better than this. So the idea is you can be, motivated by other people, but the only person you're in competition with ultimately is your own self, because you live your own reality. You're not living somebody else's reality. And the other people, like you say, what grass is greener on the other side, right? And I have seen this in therapy, what people don't see in general. People who have problems, people who have issues, they're just like everybody else. It's not written on their forehead that something is wrong with them. So even when we compare ourselves, you see those perfect social media influencers and their lives and stuff. And trust me, we know personal lives of people. It's not like that. So the idea is comparison is disrespectful to ourselves. You know why? because the person you're comparing yourself to is not you, and you are unique. So the time you spend in comparing yourself to the other person, use that time to increase your self-awareness and ask yourself what you're good at. Because no matter what, let's say you're the best therapist, you're the best IT person, you're the best writer, best author or lawyer, you're successful and you're rich. So what is the point of comparison? So spend that time on working on your craft rather than saying what other people are doing. That is not ultimately healthy, because everybody has unique journey, right? So what makes you unique? What is the value that you bring? So try to increase that value, and other people can be anchors, what we call as, they can motivate you. But remember, they are different and you are unique. So try to explore yourself more of that. I hope that answers you.
Thank you so much, Yaqeen, for that answer. We'll take a question, a live question from Kritika Jain. Kritika,
Absolutely.
if you can hear me, if you can unmute yourself and ask a question.
Yeah, sure. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hi.
So my question is, I'm a mother of a 3-year-old toddler who has just
Okay.
started school. So so there are frequent episodes of being burnout because the daily routine, managing job, him, home, everything. So it's very frequent being a mother. So how do I deal with that burnout syndrome and that
Correct.
anger? Obviously, there is a lot of there are a lot of things to do in a day. So there is anger, irritation.
Correct.
So how
Correct.
do we deal with that?
How do we deal with that? That's a very interesting part. Like you talked about being a mother and being a working mother at the same time, and all of these things, right? Because then what happens is ultimately, especially in our culture is a collectivist culture. So we think about everybody else except our own selves. We forget ourselves from the equation and we put everybody else in the front, right? So what happens ultimately in the long term, it is that we develop certain expectations and they can be hurt, be it from our children, be it from the parents, be it from somebody else. Always make sure you have that blank space within your heart, as well as some time for yourself in the physical reality, where you explore yourself and your thoughts, or just do nothing, or think about your life and what is it that you want. So you ultimately, yes, work is hard. Being a mother who is also working is also very hard. But in between all these things, because you know your job and how much time it takes and how your child is like and all the other things, but ask yourself that when was the last time you took out some time for yourself, and just to reflect and to see, like, what life should be like and what I should do for myself. Because ultimately we are individuals and we have individual value. So one of the things that I always say is that sometimes, because of our collectivist culture, it gets sacrificed, that unique individuality that we have. So I would like to say that if you can explore more on that part, in whatever time that you have. I know it's hard, there are no shortcuts, right? But my idea would be that knowing more what you want and doing that more often, what you want to do for yourself, and that can include caring for your baby and doing other things. But that also means saying no to a lot of the things that you might be doing, which are generally not your responsibility. So boundaries and finding the balance, the order in that chaos, and ultimately knowing more of yourself. I think that is something that might help in the long term.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Kritika, and thank you, Mr. Yaqeen. So there's another question in the chat box, Yaqeen, that I wanted to ask you is how to remain positive with people who refuses to take responsibility.
How to remain positive with people who refuse to take responsibility. Life is all about taking responsibility. And one of the core of all the content that I share or that I make is about taking responsibility, right? And it depends now on the situation and why you're in touch with that person. Is that a family member or whatever context there is? But the idea would be knowing what your responsibility is and making sure you don't feel guilty for not doing what is not your responsibility. Again, it's something cultural as well. Like if we don't do something, we feel guilty about it, but maybe it was not our responsibility from the first place. It was somebody else's, and that person is not taking the responsibility. So make sure, and that's why we need to have the boundary. But it's very hard to talk about these things in our culture, like personal space, privacy, boundary. We don't have these ideas. Like, important aspect here is that at least tell the person it was their responsibility. And even if you're doing this, you're doing it out of goodwill, but not that you must do it, but you are just doing it as an extra thing. That thing needs to be clarified. But if it is something that you don't want to do, we need to practice also the art of saying no, and knowing if it's not our responsibility and the other person is not taking responsibility, we are upfront about it. Otherwise, unless we tell the person, we convey to the person that they are wrong, people think that this is just like normal and you're just going to do it always. So make sure we clarify things and we make those clear boundaries. Hope that helps.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that.
No problem.
I have another question that I wanted to ask you. Also, I'm personally invested in this question. I want an answer to, Yaqeen, is, does stress lead to forgetting things easily? I mean, the forgetfulness, and how do you manage that?
Oh, clearly. I mean, any thing that stresses us, it leads to, especially the short-term memory things. We forget. For example, the tasks that we had because we are overwhelmed. Das kaam karne the, like you're like, oh, I forgot that was important. How can I forget this appointment? Or I forgot where my keys are. And then when I forgot something, or it's like a dominoes effect. Then I start getting irritated and angry about it. And because I'm angry, I have a word with somebody, and then the whole day goes bad. But ultimately, if we go back to the root cause, it is stress. And for example, and by the way, these symptoms are not something common. Nobody would tell you forgetting is a sign of depression, but it actually is, right? Because our mind works as a whole. There are compartments, like, in the brain, there are those compartments and stuff, but there are no gray, brain works as a unison. It works together. All those billion neurons, they work together in the sense, which means one aspect of the brain would have an effect on the other ones. So yes, stress does lead to forgetfulness. And the reason for that is because in stress, you feel overwhelmed. And when you're overwhelmed, you don't have the resources and the memory to separately remember every single thing. So what do you do about it? Keep your tasks written down. You have, project management softwares. You have like Trello, Evernote, and so many things where you have like a to-do list. So a thing comes or a task comes, you make sure you write it down. Don't rely on your mind to remind you of every single thing. And another thing I'll tell you what happens is why we forget. Things which our mind perceives as difficult or something that you're not interested in, it gets repressed. It gets, we suppress it unconsciously because we don't like it, right? Why do we forget appointments? Doctors ke paas jana, jo maine abhi kaha ke 6 months ke baad checkup, because we don't like hospitals. We don't like how clinics are, right? So subconsciously, unconsciously, when we don't like the setting, we try to avoid it as much as possible. So I know there is other reason. Same is why do we forget in stress? Because what we are having might be a stressful situation, and we try to like suppress it, and that's how it gets to unconscious level and we forget it. So yeah, there is a connection. I hope that answers it.
Yes, definitely. Thank you so much for that. We'll try to inculcate these suggestions in our daily life. I hope that improves.
Absolutely.
Yeah. We'll take one last question. We are short of time.
Please.
So this is from Mr. Srinivas Kedela. He says, when you have independent thoughts and these are conservative by nature, people say we have attitude. Should I just follow others so that they are happy, or should I be myself anyways, irrespective of what other things of us? And how do we balance individual versus societal acceptance?
That's really very good. Because first of all, like we talked about, that we are unique. We explore our uniqueness, right? Who we are. And then we do need a group of people who accept us the way we are. And this has to start from family. Ideal. I'm talking in ideal situations, right? Even if we are different, we are not like everybody else, right? So, and people may perceive it as something very different. You see, that's why believe in what is within you more than what people are telling you. One of the first sophisticated automobile was made by Ford. There were automobiles before that, but they were not like of a commercial grade, and they were not very successful. So Henry Ford said this, and I was reading this somewhere, and he said, if I had asked for people what do they need, they would have asked for a faster horse. How true is that? I mean, if we rely on people and their opinions, and if he would have done that, they would say, horses are good, but if it's faster, it's better. They wouldn't have thought about an automobile, right? So sometimes what works is maybe you're ahead of your time, ahead of your society, ahead of anything else, or maybe you're just different. So the best thing would be to explore who you are. And trust me, there would be people who would support you, who would love you for who you are. And that's what we need. Closer circle. And then comes the societal acceptance. It has to be in a way that it does not compromise who you are as an individual. That, you know what, I have to pretend or I have to act that, you know what, I am compatible in this group of people. Not necessarily, which I said before. Don't go where you're tolerated, go where you're celebrated, you know, because you're different and that's your uniqueness. Maybe that's who you are. So you don't want to deprive the world of your uniqueness. That would be dishonesty. So yeah, that's what I would say.
That's a great answer, Yaqeen. Thank you so much for that. So that's it from our side. I think it's time and we'll close the session. I would like to request Dr. Supreet Kaur to come in and
yes, please.
A few words. Give us a thank you note.
Thank you, Shiva. And thank you, Yaqeen. The session was really, really engaging, entertaining, and insightful. Thank you know, on a personal level, it helped me demystify a lot of concepts about stress management, workplace stress management, and a lot of things. I'm sure our viewers would have also found the session insightful. That I can see from the chat box. Everybody was engaged and, you know, into the session. So really, really appreciate your efforts. Thanks a lot. And I would also like to say a Kashmiri proverb that we have, a saying, which goes, Band Sale Sheen Gale Be Bahar.
Exactly.
Right. So if I do the literal translation, it would be like, winter is going to go, snow is going to melt, and, you know, spring is going to return ultimately. Absolutely. So one should not focus on negatives. We should also see the brighter side, as Yaqeen rightly said.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm just so happy. Thank you so much for the program, by the way. Yeah.
Yes. And like you emphasized on the need of health checkups and how they play an important role for your overall well-being and mental health. Yes. If any one of you needs a health checkup, you can book it through our MySwish portal.
Oh, really?
We'll be happy to arrange it for all of you. Yes.
Wow, you have that service. I had no idea about that part. So yeah, if those of you want, wow, that is amazing. All at one place. This is great. Yes. So guys, yes, doctor is inviting you. Please do that.
Thank you so much, Yaqeen. We look forward to many more interactive sessions with you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It was absolutely a delight. So stay in touch. Those who have more questions, we have many unanswered. You can ask me on Instagram, social media, or even on Twitter. So thank you so much. I'm still forwarding my handle to all of you. So you can definitely ask. I'm really glad to MySwish, to Ethika for organizing this. I'm really thankful to Dr. Supreet as well as Shiva for guiding us through all of this process and every single one of the participants who are here. It was absolutely a delight. I really hope to stay in touch and see you in the upcoming programs as well. It was absolutely amazing. Thank you so much and have a great evening, all of you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Yaqeen. Thank you so much.
Yes, and to add to that, Yaqeen, I had messaged my friend, I love you. She wrote back to me stating, I love you more.
Oh, great. So you got a message back. That is absolutely amazing towards the end. That's a beautiful thing to close the program with. So yeah, that was great. Thank you so much. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Absolutely.
Take care.
Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.